This episode of Taqueando is brought to you by our friends at MVA.wine. You know something I've learned traveling for food? The best meals usually happen when you don't have a plan. You're just walking around, following your instincts. Maybe you see a line of locals at a stand, and suddenly you're eating the best thing you've had all year. Wine works the same way. The other day, Luca, Robert, and I had a chance to taste a few bottles from the folks at MVA.wine, and it had that same feeling. The kind of wines you usually only find because someone puts you onto them. Their process is kind of wild. A few times a year, they get together at a farmhouse in Tuscany and blind taste 50 or 60 wines from tiny producers around the world. Every bottle has to get a unanimous yes. Only 6 make it. Most of these producers barely export, so these are wines you almost never see on shelves here in LA. They keep the whole thing small too, around 600 members. That's about all the wine these producers can spare. If you're curious, they set up something special for listeners of Taqueando and the LA Food Podcast. For listeners of Taqueando and the LA Food Podcast, the first 20 people who sign up with code LA Food get $50 off their first collection. Go to mva.wine/subscribe and use the code LA Food. That's mva.wine/subscribe and use code LA Food. Hey everyone, welcome to Taqueando. I'm your host, Bill Esparza, and this week I'm talking to Chef John Yao of one Michelin star, Kato. Chef John is a James Beard Award winner, having been dubbed Best Chef in California. Kato has been named Best Restaurant in Los Angeles, I believe twice, on the coveted 101 Best Restaurants for LA Times, and recently debuted on the inaugural North America's 50 Best Restaurant list as number 25. Hey, Chef John.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you. You know, we were supposed to do a taco crawl, I think, for this, but I'm sorry, I'm the one doing the taco crawling. I'm here in Zacatecas, and I'm sorry I couldn't be with you today in Los Angeles.
No, not at all. Very jealous of your taco eating.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think both of us sort of came up around the same time. I mean, obviously, I'm older than you, but I was blogging around the time you were getting really interested in restaurants, and so I kind of wanted to start by just kind of talking about Los Angeles and how it's such a interesting and unique mix of Asian communities. I mean, obviously, a lot of Latin American communities as well for me as a writer and culturally, but this sort of mix of really strong cuisines, right? It's not just any Asian. It's Japanese, a very large Japanese population, Korean, Chinese, Vietnamese, Thai, Taiwanese, which is really a lot different from the other cities around the United States, like New York City, San Francisco, Honolulu, San Jose, places that also have strong Asian populations. Could Kato exist in this form, the anywhere else but Los Angeles?
Not at all. We have not just food, right? There's like a lot of like art touch points and like cultural references in the restaurant that has to do specifically with this region. So we always tell people it's like an Angelino restaurant with very strong roots in the San Gabriel Valley, where I grew up. But yeah, I think it's like so specific to this area, and it's like great intro for someone traveling. But it also resonates more deeply with people who grew up in the area too. So
Right. I mean, I think when I travel around the country, there's a lot more modern Asian restaurant concepts popping up, and some of them are so unique, and they're able to really dive into a culture. But you know, I think over the last few years, I know in in interviews I've read where you've talked about, well, a lot of people are jumping in on how it's Taiwanese, it's modern Taiwanese, but it's not really. It's shaped by so many different cultures, and really, probably one of the most unique Asian experiences in the United States is growing up in the San Gabriel Valley. Um, and so I wanted to talk to you about sort of this, what I think is really special about one of the many things I think that's special about the San Gabriel Valley is its multi-generational, diverse Asian community and how it's a center, and so how was it growing up in that setting where you have not just one wave of immigrants from one part of Asia, but so many different waves that came in and established their restaurants, their businesses, and their communities. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I think you're very right in saying it's like multi generational because even my parents, they moved here in their mid 20s, and they're separated from their homeland. So it's like starting new stories, starting new traditions, but there's also so many families that are like that. And I grew up in Walnut, which the neighboring city is Roland Heights, which I think for the longest time had the largest concentration of Taiwanese people outside of Taiwan. So I didn't realize it when I was that young, but like you're literally living in the center of like a cultural enclave and it's like sheltered to some degree. So a lot of times you hear um, people who maybe grew up center of America or on the East Coast that had the like a little bit of self-loathing of their culture. Like I never ever felt that. I always just recognized that like we were living in a very diverse community with like lots of different immigrants and even like my school population demonstrated that. So a lot of the things we ate and experienced seemed very seamless. Like there weren't very like tangible barriers being put up. So I feel very blessed in that way because it makes you more. It's not even like the accepting is not the word because it's not even a matter of like cognizant like I reject or accept that. It's just like you're an Angelino, right? It's like we're
Yeah.
just one giant community. Like you're like Angelino first, and maybe like your culture second. But I was first generation Asian American, but like you said, like Chinese in America, like there's so many different generations removed, but it all felt very like cohesive.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, I have that experience. My dad was born in Mexico and came here very young. But like when I talk to people in Texas and New Mexico, Arizona, that they have a lot older lines here in the United States, and like you ask them, like, hey, where's your family from? And they'll be like, well, Texas. What about your grandparents, your great grandparents? Like, oh, Texas, and you just keep on asking, and you get that answer. And it's a very different identity where here we can say, well, my family, we're from Aguascalientes, or we're from, you know, uh, Ciudad de Mexico. And in the case of, I think it's the same connection that probably you have, where you know exactly where your family's from, the city, maybe even the part of the city, and you still have those connections and ties. And that really, I mean, that must play such a big part in how you look at Cato.
Yeah, I oftentimes explain our food as like just my mom's food replated. Like when she moved to America, she didn't necessarily know how to cook. She famously tells the story where like the year before they made the decision, sorry, the year they made the decision to move over, she like tried her best to learn as much as she possibly could about cooking, knowing that they were going to come to America and essentially be alone. So a lot of her cooking experiences and history has been like self-taught. Like she was trying to recreate the flavors of home, and they had to use a really limited Asian pantry at the time and like local ingredients, and they came very very poor. So oftentimes it was like scraps. So they were learning how to make flavors of their youth, but with like a completely different set of things. So um, I always tell people that's the same ethos that we take into our food. We're trying to take advantage of like the landscape, local traditions and cultures, and just using what we can get to make what we remember.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting that you say that, because, I was reading about, some other interviews where you've talked about this idea that you're not, reinventing the wheel, that there's nothing new. But I do notice that your approach doesn't really follow the trends of fine dining, where, again, I think if you're in another market, you tend to really go like, okay, I have to go full on, you know, techniques that are uh, of the moment, and plating that's of the moment, and falling into these types of categories of restaurants, right? Where I think at Cato, you're definitely, your food is not
I don't see it anywhere else. Even though you're not inventing the wheel, it's the I guess a type of fine dining casual approach, or this, like you said, this home cooking thing that you're trying to honor, and just a different setting. But I mean, I really remember the last dinner I had there, and the quail dish. And I look back at the quail was amazing, and the donut, which I think was a dish that you had a long time before, right? It's an older dish from Kato, and none of it was overly. It had this fresh, natural plating and presentation that was really, again, like being in someone's home.
Like, yeah, in terms of that plating, like our goal, I always tell people, like, the heat of like food is like it has to be the most important thing. Like, even when some things like bad, not bad, but like not the greatest. If it's hot, you're still gonna like it to some degree. That's like a uniquely like Taiwanese emblem, like served hot, right? But even the best dish on the world, if it's served tepid, it like drastically lowers how you perceive it. So heat is definitely. I mean, Ryan hates this because sometimes we get the bowl so hot they burn the tables, but like heat is like definitely like very high on our list of priorities. And in terms of like the sameness in fine dining right now, like you know as well as everyone else, like when you see things on social media, it passes like so fast, like it spreads like wildfire. So a lot of things start to look very similar. And for me, like, when we opened, I hadn't worked for anyone for a very long time, and I feel like I hadn't been really programmed under any chef, so we weren't like so like indoctrinated in a certain aesthetic or style, that like everything that we do in the space has been developed in the space or purely of our own creativity or interest. So we have like very traditional influences in terms of memory and taste, but in terms of technique, it's all built off of the equipment we have in the current space. So a lot of things, whether it's pantry or cooking technique, are really like unique to the space.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It's funny when talking about the heat. That's such an experience when you go out to dine at at a Chinese, Thai restaurant, or Mexican restaurant, Colombian restaurant. Is like, hey, they'll tell you in their language, the plate's hot, so watch it, and that is something that's sort of fun. And I don't know about you, but I'm sort of always tempted to touch the plate.
Always,
you know
always.
I can't resist, right? But that's such an appetizing experience. That's an exciting thing. And yes, there's a lot of fine, I mean, I'm not going to bring the restaurant up, but there's a restaurant that comes to mind where a lot of people are going and saying, oh, it's such beautiful food, but like it's just, it's pulled out of a shelf and put together for you, and it's cold, it's lukewarm, it and I think this is a this is a common complaint people have. Like, I wish the plate would have been hot because my dish died, in front of my eyes. But no, there's one thing you can say about Cato. I mean, there's many things you can say, but it doesn't look like other restaurants, and it does reflect very heavily Los Angeles. So how do you think that happens, where you do have a restaurant that's unique, but it still feels so Los Angeles?
um so I always tell people, like, our restaurant is truly like an aggregate of everyone in the space. Like, everyone has an opinion, perspective, style, and I personally think we've like are able to train our culinary staff to like a very high degree, where like they're working the station every day, like um, they're in it. If they find like a way they want to do it and we talk about it and it's more efficient, more beautiful, like we incorporate that, and now we've created something together. So um, like a lot of aesthetic touches come from like functionality, right? Like, we're doing it every day, and it makes sense to drop it like that to save us a little time to get food a little hotter, so we'll do it. So I like to think of a lot of things we do in this space as like a really natural progression of functionality meets creativity. So it's all in the service of serving something that's ultimately more delicious. So I think people go to the restaurant for like different purposes, like a lot of restaurants are like beautiful and precious, and if you have the disposable income to eat like that, you're gonna want to experience something exciting and unique and like art, like artistic. So Um, I think for us, like a lot of our diners are like, I always think of like our clientele is essentially like my parents, right? Like they want something hot and delicious. If you ask them if they would take something that's like architectural and like built by a team, or would they take like hot soup with like grilled fish in it, they're always going to take the hot soup with grilled fish. So I always think
Right.
of my parents as like our baseline, and will this make them happy? And if in my mind I'm thinking it does, that's the direction that we go in. So we're always trying to weigh out the pros and cons of something like that. Like sometimes like a hot dish with like a really extravagant garnish will lower its temperature by too much, and it won't get to the guests at the opportune moment. And um, we kind of like think along that bell curve, like what concessions are we willing to make, right? Like even if we think it's really beautiful, if it doesn't like resonate with the guest, then it's not worth serving. So we're always trying to think about food in that sense.
Yeah, that's such a different approach with where, a lot of chefs, and again, I'm really open to so many different types of restaurants, and I appreciate a place that's just doing beauty and doesn't really think as much about the diner, but they want to express something. I'm okay with that too. But there's certain, like when you walk into Kato, as you said, it's not like, we're gonna say that Kato has the most luxurious dining room out there that has that feel when you walk in the room that you're in this amazing space. But what happens, I think, for me is that I really feel the hospitality. It's on the plate, and it's not a kitchen staff and hospitality staff that's like whipped into shape with yes chef. It's like everybody really loves working there. It feels that way. It feels like everybody's really enthusiastic about the food and what the team is doing, and so that really gives you that sense of a grand experience. For me, when I, the couple of times I've been in Kato, it's like, I'm feeling the vibe is really like great. It's people, it's warm food.
And I was telling Luca on your sibling podcast, I was just saying like the luxury of what we do is like conscientious actions, right? Whether it's like cooking, prepping, storing, processing things with like care, hygiene, and integrity. Like we're putting like a lot of effort um, into those things. So yeah, there's the typical trappings of luxury where it's like, oh, we have like a beautiful sofa and like these nice things, but like um, which is like there's nothing wrong with. I think fine dining, it's just like pros and cons. It's not
Yeah.
one's better than the other. It's just really what you're into, what you're willing to spend your money on. And I think it's like nice that we have like a wide spectrum of things that you can choose from. But for us, like our luxury is like care, like genuine care about how you're gonna feel afterwards. Like, is this meal going to just like affect your health negatively, or like if we know something's like overly high in fat or cholesterol or whatever, like we're maybe hesitant on serving that. So we work with such great producers and artisans. Like we also don't like over manipulate what they're creating, because we're I always tell people we're a medium for like storytelling and product, like we're part of a chain of things, and we're not necessarily the end all be all, like we work in conjunction with our producers. We work in conjunctions to tell stories of the SGV. So it's like a lot of different moving parts. Like I think, yeah, restaurants are definitely having their moment, um, but it's all part of like a greater network. We're one city together. We're one community together. It's not just about restaurants or chefs. Like it's kind of about like our entire team.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think uh, that's a very unique place that Cato holds in the community. Is it does it's in line with all these restaurants, even though it's so different. Um, uh, but obviously, what you guys are doing is resonating, not just with accolades, but uh, you know the way people are talking about the restaurant. And I want to go back to the San Gabriel Valley. I think I have a couple of questions to ask you about that, but you know, I want to say that around the time that the bloggers, back I want to say around 2008, 2009. There were a bunch of us that were, a lot of some of which went on to go into writing, but that were going with our friends. I would take my friends to a taqueria or some Brazilian restaurant, and then they'd run me out to have dim sum, and we were all experiencing each other's cuisines. And I'm wondering for you, like you talk a lot about eating at home and the home cooking that you experience, but as a teenager, which would have been around that time, I mean, in the aughts, right, was when you were coming into your teens. Were you able to go around and experience the San Gabriel Valley and go out dining there, or were you kind of stuck more with home? I say this because when I went to town to see my grandmother, I was never allowed to go eat anywhere but my grandmother's kitchen, and it wasn't a rule, but it was sort of like that's what she wanted and that's what I did. But I missed out on a lot of dining experiences back home because of that situation. Were you able to really experience that? And where did you guys go? Where did your family go to dine?
Roland Heights, the city I spoke about, is like a huge
Yeah,
hub for Chinese food. So even being in that area, like my parents worked a lot, so yeah, they would try to cook, but more often than not too, we would like also eat out at all these casual places. So like the large Vietnamese community in the area, there are a lot of Korean places. There was Thai, but we tried everything. And my parents worked a lot in the garment district in downtown, so we would travel from Walnut to LA, so everything in between, and then um, yeah, eating Mexican food downtown. Um, Eating all the Vietnamese restaurants in like Alhambra, Monterey Park, going to all the old Cantonese seafood houses and the supermarkets. Like, um, I think as a kid, you're kind of like, oh, I'm like driving everywhere. I'm just sitting in a car. But I think like having the meal at the end of that workday was like always my favorite part. And I think my best friends in high school, who I like, we still eat out everywhere now, but we were able to enjoy so many different places. Um, like we all had access to cars during that time, so we would drive everywhere just to eat. I think food, like I didn't know if I was gonna enter the industry or not, but regardless of
right.
where I was headed, it was always like a very large part of my life.
It was a really exciting time. I feel like when you go back to the groups that went to the San Gabriel Valley, I mean, obviously it opened up after they ended the restrictive covenants, and people were, finally blacks and Latinos and Asians were and Jews and all kinds of other groups were able to move around the city where they wanted, and everybody sort of settled. Japanese went to Torrance and Jews went to the Fairfax district, and so many Chinese and Taiwanese went to the San Gabriel Valley, and because there was already a community there. But I feel like it was in the aughts that like everybody got excited about dining out there, and Jonathan Gold obviously was writing about it. The bloggers, a lot of bloggers from those communities were talking about their places with authority. It was really an exciting time to experience it. Now, of course, it's such a, with the new wave of influencers and things, it's kind of changed, but I felt like that was a really fun time in the San Gabriel Valley, the time you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's different. It's different than eating out in LA. Um, yeah, we're just talking right now before this podcast, but like, I don't, I, I'll eat out in Los Angeles occasionally, but like the price point's so high, and there's like a lot of like expectations and circumstance, and like service plays such a huge element. But most of the times I'm in San Gabriel, like you're sharing meals with um, just like someone who lives in that neighborhood, and you're just in and out really quick. You get to eat someone's food that's like they're cooking for their livelihood. They're not doing it to express anything. They're just doing it to get by, and it's a specialty of the place they came from. And they have like they have great stories about how it came to be. So um, yeah, a lot of times I'm sorry, like, it's not even a lot of times. It's like maybe 3 to 4 times a week that I'm eating in that area because it's just kind of like my neighborhood. But um, yeah, it's weird. It's weird seeing like when like maybe like influencers go and try to like sensationalize a place, but
Yeah,
that place is literally just there to service an immigrant community. That's like one of the like it might be like a burgeoning like group from like a specific village, and that restaurant's just there to service them. So um, yeah, it's there's yeah there's negative parts about it being so like popularized like that. But I think for us, we just try to go in, have a meal, and like just leave.
Right. Yeah, I mean it's still and there's still, I mean it's so vast. There's I feel like we're never going to know the San Gabriel Valley. I mean there are diners out there that really make their way through it, but um and I have another but I want to kind of backtrack here a little bit about, you know, uh I know that on my sister podcast, uh, you you guys talked about Michelin, but you know, I've been really curious about watching all the chefs right now. I feel like we're in an era where chefs really understand how 50 Best and Michelin work more than they used to, and there's a certain awareness, and you can almost see restaurants opening and kind of going after it, right? And I think that's all great. I went to Lilo. I loved Lilo. I was like I've never been in a restaurant that felt like it was really going so hard for a Michelin star, but I liked it and I liked the experience, and there was still hospitality that felt you know, warm, and there was a fun element of dining there, even though they're like, okay, you got the you know, snacks in one room and the dining experience, lots of stuff done at the table, and then desserts in another room. Had that. I'm like, I'm seeing a lot of restaurants like that. But so how, with that knowledge right now, and your peers talking about it so much, so how do you temper ambition while keeping your inspiration intact? You know, keeping your soul intact about how you approach the restaurant.
For me, it's two fronts. I think number one, I'm trying to reconnect with like my heritage in the same way that my mother did. So like I essentially cook food where I can go to my mom and be like, dude, I was able to make like we're testing ducks next year to do like our version of a Peking duck, and we're testing like duck century eggs to go with it. But I'm making all these things that like as a kid my parents would have to take me to like a specialty place to have. But I'm really trying to recreate these traditional things, but serve them in a way that feels like we're expressing ourselves and
Yeah,
it's like modern. So I'm really cooking to like essentially share things with my parents, be like, dude, I can't wait for you guys to come in and try this because I was able to recreate this thing that we had in our childhood that you said you could only have in Taiwan, that we had to go to this one place to have, or some place that I traveled to with them in Taiwan where I was like, we're never going to be able to get this in the States. So for me, it's more a medium of like expression and storytelling. Um, but I'm really like, I never lived in Taiwan for a prolonged period of my time. I've only visited China and Taiwan, and I've always like I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, so I think a part of me is just trying to reconnect with my roots, and it's like it's self discovery essentially. So I'm trying to tell that story and share it with other people. You know, I grew up with a lot of people with similar backgrounds, and they do that through their own means and ways. So we're just trying to share it with other people who like want to feel at home in a space, who like perhaps never realized how like they didn't belong in like other rooms in fine dining and or restaurants or California or whatever. So um I always try to think about it like that, you know, and I think in terms of external validation, I think for me, I'm always just trying to feel good about what we do, you know. It's not
yeah,
necessarily about not just like flavor and execution. It's like, were we able to source the best thing we could that day? Am I really happy with like the quality of product? Am I happy with like how I cooked that day? Did we store it or age it properly? So it's more about um, feeling like very fulfilled and satisfied with work at the end of the day. And I think um yeah, we kind of like block the other stuff out. Those are the main things that we're trying to achieve, to like create a product with like intention and integrity. And um is that exactly the best that we could have done that day? Did we have to make any compromises? You know, it's reality. It's like like it's like there's like a human aspect to it. So if we hit all those notes and I walk away feeling really good at the end of the night, that's always the primary motivation. I always tell
Yeah.
my cooks, like, if you cut a corner or something, not even in front of me, just like on your own, like, I want I want to be able to bring someone to the point where they can discern for themselves, like, I should feel bad because I didn't do this to my utmost ability. um, I don't want to have to make that discernment for them, And if I could, yeah, instill that in everyone, and yeah, like, you kind of like abide by your own standards, um, and if you like get away with cutting a corner, and you're rewarded for that, that's even worse. That kind of like, it's like affirmation that you can do it again. So, um,
Right.
yeah, so you are your truest judge, and I like feel very firmly that, like, yeah, the validation is great for the team, and like a testament to everyone's hard work. But at the end of the day, you also want to feel good about what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's such a great way to look at it, that sort of internalizing things. And what greater connection than to be cooking for your mom and trying to connect that way to kind of keep you grounded, you know?
Yeah,
I
I know
think
when my
that's
mom and
amazing.
dad say some things like, "Oh wow, that's cool," I'm like, "Yes, all right, we're good path."
This episode of Taqueando is brought to you by El Encanto in Santa Barbara, Santa Barbara's most storied luxury hideaway. Up in the hills of the American Riviera, El Encanto has been welcoming guests since 1918. It is a 90-room property with individually styled bungalows and suites spread across 7 acres of terraced gardens, with panoramic views of downtown Santa Barbara and the Pacific. It feels tucked away and serene, but you are just minutes from everything. And I'll say this personally, when I'm in Santa Barbara, this is my favorite place to stay. There's just nothing else like it. There is a zero-edge pool overlooking downtown Santa Barbara and the Pacific Ocean, a boutique spa, bikes to cruise around town, and access to fitness and wellness programming. And the food is serious. The dining room and terrace is helmed by multiple James Beard Award nominee Chef Joel Veland, whose resume includes Noma and Gramercy Tavern. It is seasonal Central Coast cuisine, thoughtful wines, and one of the best views in California. They also host an intimate culinary series that brings in celebrated chefs for special evenings of food, wine, and storytelling. Whether you are planning a romantic weekend, a wedding, or just need to reset with some ocean air and great meals, El Encanto is the move. Visit elencanto.com and book your stay, and tell them Taqueando sent you.
Obviously, you guys are you've done this at probably the most difficult period in Los Angeles restaurant history, at least in my memory, my experience. Um, so how is the community holding up right now? And how are you holding up? How is everybody doing? I mean, there is a case to be made that LA has been the hardest hit since the pandemic. And do you feel like it's a source of unity, or it's just a tough time, and that's the way it is? Or what's everybody feeling right now?
I think people in hospitality are like very resilient, right? More so, maybe more so than other things. And you're kind of like, the general attitude is always just like, you just grit your teeth and get through it. But this, yeah, you're right. This one does feel a little differently, and it's hard to convey that to our younger staff members. People who don't have any real ownership over like a business, or like holds any power. Um, for the livelihood of other people. They just know I'm clocking in and out. Today's service is hard. Yesterday's service was hard. Like, why do we have to, whatever? Why do we have to overbook? Why do we have to, whatever, like work an hour and overtime or whatever it is? They're just like, why is
Yeah.
work harder? They don't really understand that. So it's just a matter of like conveying to them, like, hey, like it's just a tough time. We're all gonna have to work harder, smarter, be more accountable for our actions. And yeah, it's just weathering a really bad storm, and like being there for your peers and offering any help. And I think things like the Los Angeles recognition in like Providence getting 3 stars, Somni getting 3 stars, those are huge achievements that I feel like weren't celebrated properly by Los Angeles. That's going to bring international clientele, people with
Yeah.
like a different currency that could like cushion our local economy. Those are huge things. Like having restaurants named on like global lists, like that brings international clientele. Like ultimately, like people are gonna come spend time. Like people don't fly and have one meal and leave. Like people are gonna spend time here. And I think Angelino achieving something is an accomplishment for us all, whether it's
Yeah.
like within like 1 degree of separation or five. Like it ultimately helps. And like we have the World Cup and Olympics coming, and we have All-Star Weekend coming, so hopefully all of those things like are conducive to like helping, but it's just fingers crossed.
Yeah. How do you think we fell short in, in celebrating these restaurants?
you know I think there's like an inherent nature of competition for like a lot of people in hospitality. Like no specific examples come to mind, but I think just like I don't know, we're always thinking about restaurants in like a community aspect, even if there's like a way for like I don't know, like we can drive a celebration, or I don't know. I get that like the impact of our sector is like great, but it's spread. It's not like
Yeah.
we're not getting a Dodgers parade for something like that, but
Right.
like anything to that nature would be, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I get what you're saying. I mean, I'm watching these generations of chefs right now. Like, I remember in 2008, a lot of the young chefs at the time were very, they were very much like a group. And now, people, marriage, kids, uh, partnerships breaking up. It's very fragmented, that group, and you don't see them spending time together anymore or celebrating each other like they did at the time. But right now, I think there's always these different groups and cliques that do band together. But yeah, I do see what you're saying. There isn't really a citywide chef jumping in like, hey, this is great for LA, and everybody's celebrating that. Yeah, I definitely see that, and it is important. Um, I always tell people when they, it's as much as Michelin and 50 Best are getting more notoriety, and there's more awareness in the world about them. There's obviously people that like, well, I don't like these lists, and I always say like, hey, if you're going to a restaurant that's 50 best right now, or you're going to a Michelin star restaurant right now, later on you're going to look back and say, I was there at the time when this restaurant was really in its prime, and that's really something special unto itself. I like the idea that I was at Kato when it was, when you were there every night and it was hitting its stride. That can't go on forever, and eventually chef has to step out of the kitchen and do something else. I mean, not all chefs, but many do, right? And I think that's what's really special about those lists.
I think that's like the romantic like value in food, right? It's like a very like fleeting moment. It's like that one Japanese phrase that's like this, you can't really recreate this moment, right? Like the people you're
Yeah.
with, the emotions you're experiencing, the person that's cooking for you. It's like the beauty of food that like it's not like a piece of art that just hangs there for you to enjoy at any given time. Like it's like the scarcity and like the circumstance of it that's particular and special.
Right. Yeah. And so and now going back to the San Gabriel Valley, because I'm forever fascinated by it, and I it's one of the many neighborhoods in Los Angeles. I feel like a lot of the Mexican there's so much Mexican community in Los Angeles, right? We're everywhere. Central Americans are everywhere, but I feel like it's knowable for me, and I don't, maybe it's because I'm in touch with that culture, but like Koreatown just seems like I'll never get to all these restaurants in Koreatown, and I try, and same thing for San Gabriel Valley, but I think it's funny because I want to get your opinion on this. That people coming from New York and they complain that we don't have these New York style Chinese egg rolls, and like LA Chinese food sucks, and I'm like, wait, what's wrong with you people? I don't feel like people outside of Los Angeles or even outside the Asian community understand the breadth and scope of the Asian restaurants unless you've actually driven down Valley Boulevard and slow and rolled the window down and listened and looked on the many avenues and boulevards around there. So, what is it that keeps the SGV nationally so somewhat undiscovered?
I think of all the like cultural enclaves in Southern California, that's a really particularly hard one to break into, just because like you, if you think about how large Koreatown is versus like San Gabriel Valley is like so large, and every year more restaurants coming in. There's like different generations, right? Like American Chinese food is like a few generations of immigration and then a few generations removed. So it's like developed its own legs. But San Gabriel Valley, it's like you get like so many specialists coming in that like if you're unfamiliar with that region, which most people are, I am, you know, like that
Yeah.
lessons kind of meant to be learned like at the restaurant. So it's just really hard to break into. Even me, like I, as often as I eat in San Gabriel, like you can't think of how many new restaurants come in like all the time. And now you have places that are serving like one, two, or three things, which is awesome. I think that's like the ideal like restaurant type. Like there's like a lot of those new places coming in. So
Right. We're getting more specialization,
we're
right?
getting more specialists, which is awesome, and it's like hard to just outright keep up.
You know, I've seen many of your lists. I know. I mean, you know, you can tell us where are your favorite beef noodles?
My favorite beef noodles, I'm always gonna go with like my mom's first and foremost, but like now that she's older,
Yeah.
it's like kind of like a hard lift. The famous one is Daiho. Daiho is excellent. Um, I'm not one to complain about price, but there is a like a reasonable difference between Daiho and like the next place.
Right.
Um, Daiho is like very Taiwanese, but if I want that like that general feeling of having beef noodle soup, like the Northern Cafe, specifically the one on Garfield, the pickled pepper and sour mustard one is very very good. Um, what else? PP Pop is like good for like just like very casual like Taiwanese cafe style beef noodle soup. But there's so many, but um, yeah, we forget how good American beef is. It's like very different than Taiwanese beef. So every beef noodle
Right.
soup's like pretty good.
Right. So some of these experiences where you're having the culture in another part of the world can be improved in some, you know, unintentionally because of things like that. Right. I've heard again and again how much better Korean barbecue is in Koreatown than back in Korea because of the quality of the meat.
Right,
Um, not talking about the banchan or anything like that, but just like the actual meat itself
right.
is, you know, markedly different. Um, so okay, so what are some of the, you know, you said you're always going, there's new specialists. What are three places that recently have surprised you in the San Gabriel Valley? Some new places.
Um, I don't know if you've been, but M Joy, the place that does only lamb, is incredible. I'm like completely hooked on it. Um, it's like I'm hooked in a really bad way because whenever I drive past, I'll get it. Um, where else?
What's your order there?
The lamb ribs are incredible. The lamb ribs are so good because they essentially only do lamb, shank, or skewers, and then the shank comes boiled over rice, but the lamb you can get it roasted or boiled over rice. That one's very very good. Um, Pho de cow. I think the one in Westminster is called DeKalb, but the one in Rosemead might be called Kadao. But they do like a free range chicken pho, so the chicken tastes more like what you'd get in Asia, like maybe a little bit tougher, but like really
Yeah.
soft, supple, gelatinous yellow skin. It's delicious. It's like incredible in broth, and they season it very lightly, and it's not really spiced. So I go there all the time for like an early breakfast. Um, Summer rolls I've been going to since I was young, but it's like one of the best Vietnamese restaurants in San Gabriel. Typically, if you want like um, really good Vietnamese food, you'd go down to like Westminster. Um, but this one is like my favorite if you're in LA. But I've been going to that like for decade plus. That's like I have to eat it at least once a month. Um, yeah, I think those are my three like really go tos.
Those are your go-tos.
Yeah.
What about outside of the San Gabriel Valley? I mean, do you hit Thai Town and Koreatown much? And
I love Thai food. I love I I used to eat Pa Ord, the one in the plaza next to northern Thai food. I used to go there
Right.
like once a week, and then that's when they did the small boat noodle. So I would do a small boat noodle and a small tom yum. But I love Mae Malai. I love hang hang chicken rice. Um, yeah, I love any restaurant where you can go in like as a deuce or a solo and just get a thing to yourself and maybe share like another salad and then be in and out within like 15-20 minutes.
Right. You're in a hurry. You got to get the
Yeah.
service. So Thai Town's one of your favorite hits, and outside of the San Gabriel Valley.
Yeah, I love Thai Town.
Have you been to Mesa Thai?
No, I haven't, but I think I saw the Eater article on it, but I do need to go. I get like limited time to eat even on weekends because I'm kind of just like running errands and doing chores. So like if it's not the San Gabriel Valley, I'm typically like, oh, if I'm gonna make a 20-minute drive, I have to like phone it in and do something I'm used to.
You are definitely being selective about what you do, but you are very active out there. I mean, do you feel like that's sustainable for you? Are you able to still kind of take care of yourself, your mental health as you're kind of meeting all these demands that are coming on you because of the accolades and because of the popularity of Kato?
I feel like I try to have like a really holistic view on how I live my life. So I like have like a very like regimented lifestyle. So um, we're talking about restaurants, but what I actually eat on a day-to-day basis and like the timeline of it is actually quite boring. But I like, yeah, I like have a strict schedule I really impose on myself. Like I wake up at a certain time, I work out for a certain amount of time. I like schedule how I work out. I schedule what I eat and how long before I sleep. I know how I'm gonna tackle my day like before the week starts. We know how we're gonna R&D, so I try to like give myself a schedule. So I kind of like hold myself to that standard, just so like I can punish myself if I stray too far. But yeah, I mean, thanks for asking. First of all, that's very kind of you. But I think having like a bunch of different talented people who are responsible for projects in the space is like really really helpful. And I think Ryan's been really good about being like a cushion and a barrier. And like when we select things, we're like pretty methodical on like if this works out, are we ready for this? I'm like a really firm believer that like everyone gets opportunities, but like when you take the opportunity is just as important as if you take it. Like sometimes you're just not ready to receive that thing. And even though that thing may appear in your life, it may not be the right time or best time to take it. So we're always thinking about how it affects um, the restaurant as a whole. I think, like I said, a lot of times you're going to want to take things and want to take opportunities and do certain events, but we're always thinking about the livelihood of the staff and how that could potentially impact the restaurant. So um, we have someone here that I've worked with who's like her name's Evelyn. And if you've been to the restaurant, you definitely know her. But like, um, yeah, she just like came to help us out at the old space because she was bored and like she doesn't have much to do, and that's something we work with. So like now she comes to work with us at the new space, and like sometimes if we have a day off or something, she's like, I don't want a day off, so we don't take the day off.
Well, I love that. That's great to hear. You're taking care of yourself. You're taking care of your people, and you guys are, having a great time at Cato. So the one thing I do want you to make time for this year, 2026, is we got to go on a taco crawl.
I'm so down. You'll be disgusted at how many tacos I can eat. Like
Okay, challenge accepted.
I remember
Challenge.
you guys. I remember you guys talking with Max and Jordan about the 3-bite rule. That doesn't exist with me.
Oh, okay. No bite count for you.
No
You
bite
can
count.
go.
We're not doing a bite count.
Okay. I accept that challenge, and we're gonna go on a longer crawl than that one because those guys
Okay,
those
challenge
guys went
accepted.
down. They went down. They couldn't even handle it. So we're gonna top that. Uh, Chef John, thank you for talking with me today and for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Again, so proud of you and your team and everything you guys are doing.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for all your support. And yeah, thanks for having us. And thanks for putting LA on the map. So
Thank you for tuning in to the Taquiando podcast this week. And be sure to tune in next week for another episode. And please leave us a rating or review wherever you listen to your podcasts.